Hello, everyone, and welcome to IdiotSpeak podcast number 11.
I don't know how to say 11 in any other language.
Yeah, I don't either.
Except for German.
Except for German, I don't know either.
Elf?
We actually got some somber news that we're going to talk about today.
Yes, Mr. Iwata has passed away from Nintendo.
Yeah, very, very unexpectedly. He was, 55 years old?
Yeah, I believe so.
I mean, I think they've talked that he has been sick. We knew he had, surgery about a year ago. He wasn't at E3 in 2014.
Yeah.
He wasn't at E3 this year. He did. I believe he did a direct before E3, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's going to be coming back, and he's going to be doing directs again." And then they announced that he wasn't going to be at E3, and everyone was kind of surprised, but no one really had any idea of how sick he was.
Yeah, I didn't ever realize it was a serious.
Yeah.
It was very much a surprise. I know you texted me, and I was like, "What?" Like, I immediately had to get on Facebook, get on my news story. I'm like, "Oh, okay, I guess it actually did happen."
Yeah, I saw it on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh, that's a joke. That's a bad joke," because that happens every once in a while. It's some celebrity or famous person or whatever. They're like, "Oh yeah, they died in a plane crash or whatever," and then they have to tweet out like, "No, we're still alive." I'm like,
"Yeah, we're still here."
I just saw his name, like, there's no way. Yeah, I know he's been sick, but this is just some sick joke that somebody made because they know that hasn't been well. But sadly, it was true.
Yeah. So
what I think we're going to talk about is what we liked about Iwata. I mean, his business plans that he had with Nintendo, and kind of where do we think Nintendo's going to go from here?
Yeah, and who do we think is going to supplant him? Is that what you say? Supplant? Replace?
Replace. Sad to say that, but yeah. So let's start with what you thought about how he ran Nintendo. Like, I know he came in from HAL in, was it 2000?
I think so. That was when he got the promotion up to being with Nintendo.
I can't remember the title, but he joined Nintendo, I believe, in 2000, and then he became president in 2002.
Yeah,
which was kind of a big deal because Nintendo's been run by the same family for 120 something years.
Yeah, long time, and he was the first one outside of that family to be in that position, in the CEO position.
Right, which is unique for a Japanese company.
Yeah, who's very traditional.
But and he ushered in kind of a new era of Nintendo. He came in right at, I believe it was the end of the GameCube era.
I believe so. Yeah, I think GameCube was kind of dying off, and they needed something else to pick up the slack to get them back on board with everybody. And
I think one of his first big things with Nintendo, I know he did a bunch of stuff with HAL. He did Kirby and Smash Brothers, which we are very thankful for both of those. But the first thing he kind of did with Nintendo was the DS.
Yeah.
Do you have a DS?
Oh yeah, I've owned every version of the handhelds with the exception of the new 3DS, which I do want, but it doesn't have anything that makes me want to go get it right now.
Right.
But yeah, I had the original DS, which was very heavy, very it was this big gray thing that you opened up and flipped open, and but it was cool because you could play advanced games as well as the DS games and all that kind of stuff. And the big thing that came out with it was the Nintendo 64. Jeez, Mario 64 was one of the first games that came out with it, and that's actually, I think, the reason that I bought it was like, oh, I really want to play Mario 64.
And it was updated, wasn't it? Like, weren't there other characters in it or something like that?
You could... Oh man, God, that's been so long. I don't even remember. I think you could eventually play as Luigi.
I thought Wario and Luigi. I could be wrong. I could be thinking of something else, but
maybe you're right. I can't remember. I know that they did a bunch of stuff in it. Okay. I don't know if that was the game that they did that with, because I do remember there was a game that you could pick who you wanted to play as, one of those four characters.
And they all had slightly different styles.
Yeah,
I don't remember if that was it or not, but I was thinking it was. So I could be completely wrong, but. I never played a DS. I never owned one. I don't think I've ever even held one. But
no, because you played Super Smash Brothers on it because it came out.
That was 3DS.
That was a 3DS.
I know they're similar, but whatever. Yeah. I'm being particular.
Me.
So yeah, he comes out with this idea for a dual screen portable console, and I remember that was at a time where wasn't it the PSP was just coming out.
I don't even know if the PSP was out yet.
I think they showed the PSP and the DS at the same E3.
Okay.
And I remember everyone was like, "Oh, the DS, that's never going to do anything." And it is like, what, the number 2 selling console of all time?
Yeah, it blew the PSP out of the water because the PSP, because I had one of those as well. You could like watch movies and stuff on it, but nobody really wanted to do that. It was a game disc. You had problems with skipping and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
And I didn't feel that the PSP had the game selection stuff on it that the 3DS originally had, and it was different. It had the touchpad and stuff like that. There was different things that you could do, dual screens and stuff like that. The PSP just didn't have anything that really drew that in. I actually ended up selling my PSP.
Well, and I know another thing about the DS that was kind of interesting was it kind of was the first game console that kind of went after, I would say, casual gamers. It went after kind of people who weren't known for being gamers, which is something I think he continued with the Wii. He kind of went after, again, a whole nother market that never was really interested in games.
Yeah.
And I think the DS kind of started that with like the Brain Age games.
Yeah, and different stuff like that.
Right. I mean, there were definitely games on there for, the Nintendo market, but there were also games that I would say older people or people who just weren't traditional gamers were like, hey, this is something interesting.
Well, and it also came out with games that even younger fans could then play. Right. Like that was the first thing that I guess Nintendogs and stuff like that came out on, which definitely appealed to, like, my 3-year-old could probably pick up the DS and play with something that was Nintendogs. I mean, all it is playing with a puppy the whole time. So I mean, they could do something like that. Whereas, they're not going to pick up a Mario game and be able to... I mean, some 3-year-olds, sure, they've probably been, playing video games as long as my kids have been alive. But for a 3-year-old to first pick it up, that would be new to them.
Well, and I mean, to me, nowadays, you give young kids like that tablets. And they use tablets. Well, this is kind of like a precursor to that in a way, if you think about it. I mean,
yeah, and I mean, my kids play with tablets and stuff like that, and like my wife's always complaining about our son because our son knows how to get to everything on the tablet and therefore everything on her phone because they're both Android based. Yeah. So like he'll get her phone and like be like looking up YouTube videos on her phone of different like Cookie Monster and stuff like that, and he's not even 3 yet, so
Well, that's something you brought up a little while ago I wanted to touch on. The DS could play Game Boy Advance games.
Yeah, which I didn't like that they got away from that whenever they brought out the 3DS. I understand.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, I understand why they did that. But the cool thing about the DS and the reason that I love the DS because I was big into Pokemon and playing the Pokemon games and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Well, they had the DS games were Pokemon games. Well, you could put an advanced like Leaf Green or whatever into the back, and you could seamlessly trade your Pokemon between games because they were both inserted into the console.
Right.
Which was awesome because it used to be like, oh, I got to have 2 of these and connect them both together and then mess with both or hope that a friend wants to do this and different stuff like that. With this, I could trade with myself, do different stuff like that. And I could also seamlessly transition between 2 different games. Like if I was playing, if I wanted to go somewhere with it and let's say I wanted to play Mario 64 for a little while and then I got bored with that. Well, I already had another game in there. I could seamlessly switch over to Pokemon and be like, all right, well, now I'm going to play Pokemon for a little while.
All right. Now, I don't remember. I have a Game Boy Advance. It's been years since I've touched it. Was that backwards compatible with the Game Boy?
Oh, man. I know for a while they were.
Oh, they were? Okay.
It looked funny because you had the big cartridge sticking out, and I know that the DS, you couldn't stick the big cartridge in there.
I was just wondering if the DS was the first console from Nintendo that was anywhat backwards compatible, but if the advanced one was, then never mind.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure the advanced was, I think when they moved to the SP, which was that flip-up screen, I don't think that one was backwards compatible.
Okay. Well, anyway, so he went from the DS to the Wii, was his next big invention for Nintendo, I guess. Not his invention, but what he kind of...
Pioneered,
right. And, again, another success. Like, it was this underpowered box that was in standard definition compared to the Xbox 360 and PS3, which were much more pretty looking and mature systems. I mean, there was if you wanted a good mature shooting game or whatever, you went with those, but the Wii still outsold them both.
Yeah, and that was the first time that we had the motion technology and different stuff like that, and I think that pulled a lot of people in. if nothing else, for the hopes of what it could do.
That's why it got my attention.
Yeah. So I mean, that was a big thing, and I actually think that's what ended up hurting them on the Wii U too, is because everybody's seen what they did with the Wii, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but it wasn't fantastic either. And then you brought out the Wii U, which was going to have similar technology, and everybody kind of went, I don't really need that.
Well, and I mean, this kind of goes into a debate I know we've already had, but I still think that the Wii U is what the Wii should have been.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there for this. Kind of what I was getting at, though, is that's kind of his philosophy, was how he did the DS and how he did the Wii, was he didn't really care what the competition was doing. Like,
No.
He didn't care what Xbox and Sony were doing.
No, he was going to put out his own thing and let it stand alone on what he thought it should be, or what Nintendo thought it should be.
And for those two consoles, it worked.
Yeah.
But then he called that his the Blue Ocean philosophy.
Yeah, or Open Ocean.
Something
Blue
like,
Ocean or Open Ocean.
I think it was Blue Ocean, because the whole point was that Microsoft and Sony were going to turn their part of the ocean red, but Nintendo would be looking for the blue ocean that no one was going, that the route that no one was taking, and pioneer out that way. And like I said, for the DS and the Wii, it seemed like that worked.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the Wii didn't have the most game sales, but they had the most console sales, and I think they pulled in a huge demographic of people, like I said earlier, who didn't care about video games. Like, I know for a long time, I don't know if it's still the case, but I know for a while, Wiis were actually extremely popular in nursing homes and like rehabilitation centers for people like with hand-eye coordination things.
Yeah, yeah, I know. When on my kid's second birthday, we had a bunch of family and stuff over, and I got my uncles and stuff to play. It was on the Wii U, but we were using Wii controllers. We were playing Mario Kart and stuff like that, and they actually enjoyed doing that because it's using the tilt controls and different stuff like that. So that made it more accessible. You don't have to have a memorization of buttons or anything like that. You can just kind of play it.
Well, and just recently we had my 80-something-year-old grandma playing Wii Bowling.
Yeah.
And because we couldn't really, there's no way she could actually roll a real bowling ball down the lane. So, but she was able to play this, and she did well.
Yeah.
I mean, she had no idea what she was. We had to keep explaining, like, here's how you do it. But once she got the hang of it, and she was able to do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, and this is a person who she always said she doesn't even know how to work a cell phone, but here she is. She's virtually bowling.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it was a really interesting idea and an interesting philosophy that he had. However, I don't think it worked as well with the 3DS and the Wii U. I know the 3DS is doing all right now, but it took it some time to kind of get started.
Well, and that's the thing with Nintendo, is they always like to come out with something bigger and better that's the same thing, essentially. So they came out with the same thing with the, because like I said, I've owned every type of these. So it started off with the DS. Then they came out with the DS Lite.
Yeah, I believe that was the next one.
Then, which I had. Then it was much lighter, had slightly better graphics and stuff like that.
Oh, really? I didn't know
I think the touchpad might have been better, or whatever, like the graphics in the touchpad or something like that. And then they came out with the DS XL, which I don't think I got the DS XL. I think I waited until the 3DS because those two came out at the same time.
Gotcha.
So then I got the 3DS, and the 3DS. I liked, but I didn't like using the 3D because a lot of the reviews and stuff will say the same thing. It would make you sick after a certain amount of time because the problem was you literally had to be an exact amount away from it and at the right angle in order to see the 3D. And if you didn't do that, your eyes couldn't focus on both the different images, and over a certain amount of time, it'd start to make you sick.
Well, and that's something that supposedly, I've not seen the new 3DS. That's something they fixed with the new 3DS.
Supposedly it's a much wider viewing angle.
Yeah.
And from what I've actually seen is if you go outside of that viewing angle, instead of it seeing the two different pictures or your focus being blurry or something like that, the screen almost goes black.
Really?
So that way it doesn't make sick.
Yeah.
Like it's either you're looking at it and you can see the 3D, or you can't see anything, which is a good idea if that's what they did. And I know they put a bigger processor in it and a few more buttons and stuff like that on the new 3DS XL, which I still need to go get. And so yeah, I mean, that's something that they really like to do along the way. But the problem is that you get all these people that buy the DS, and then as you're making every 4 months coming out with a different version of it, nobody's going to continue to buy every single version. Right. They get to the point that they're like, well, I'm okay with the version that I have.
I wonder if that was Nintendo looking at how Apple because there's a lot of Apple people who will
every year
they buy their new phone. So like, hey, if we put out a new version of the DS, 3DS, whatever, maybe they'll buy it. And I don't think it quite works that way with a game console.
Yeah, and especially not with that, because there's not enough changes. I mean, when you look at it from the DS to the new 3DS XL, yeah, there's a ton of changes. But
each
there's
increment
there's a little increment every single time, and that's going to hurt you as you're going. Because like I said, people are going to get to a point that they're upgrading. They're like, well, in another 4 months, what are you going to come out with? I'm just going to wait.
Now, do you think that might be... I mean, who knows now, but do you think that was ever the intention for the home consoles to go that way? Because... comparatively between the Wii and the Wii U, I know that the NX is supposedly coming out either next year or the year after, which we keep hearing rumors is actually going to be next year.
I sure hope so.
Well, there's some pretty heavy rumors that it's going to be next year. But anyway, I mean, do you think they're going to start having the home consoles come out sooner? And who cares about the generation? They're going to have their own like little sub-generations?
Well, Nintendo kind of already goes by their own schedule. They don't really care what the other people are doing. Kind of like you said, the blue ocean philosophy. They don't care when the other guys are doing it. They're going to do their thing.
But I mean, up to this point, though, with at least up into, I guess, the Wii U is the first of the eighth generation. They've kind of been in sync with everyone else.
At least close to it.
With the home consoles, yeah.
Right. I don't think that they're going to do... Hopefully they learn their lesson with the DS of breaking it down too much. Nobody's going to buy it. And hopefully they learn the same thing with the Wii U, which is if you just take the same technology and add a few little things here and there, it's not going to pull in the people to buy it.
Right.
You've really got to either come out with something completely different, or you've got to come out with something that could be using the same technology, but it's got to be so far upgraded past the last one that it makes it worth the buy. So hopefully they've learned that lesson, and they don't I don't want to see this NX come out and then 4 months later there's the NX Pro and then there's the NX Pro Deluxe, and I don't want to see that. So and Xbox and that kind of stuff kind of does that anyway, but the way that they do it is like, okay, well, here's the base unit, we want to get you the product. It's got a 20 gig hard drive or whatever, and then a couple months down the line, well, now we've got the Pro one, it comes with a 250 gig hard drive and stuff like that. That's just equipment being added on. It's not necessarily all the different stuff upgraded.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think that's what Xbox has always done, and PlayStation, I believe, to a degree. The differences between their models are just more or less the hard drive space. Yeah, I think the Xbox Slim had a slightly more quiet fan or something.
It's got a quieter fan, and it does actually have a processor upgrade.
Oh, it did.
That's actually why whenever my original Xbox went out, I went out and searched and got a Slim because I heard that it had a better processor and stuff like that.
Okay,
and I've had issues with games freezing on 360, so I was hoping that would fix it, and it didn't. I popped in Fallout New Vegas the other day. If I try to sell everything at once to a vendor,
it
freezes. And I'm like, what the hell? But no, so I mean, it is what it is on that. Got away from what we were talking about, but
anyway, what were we talking about?
But we were talking about what we think they're gonna do and what he's done.
Yeah, what he's done. One last thing I do want to say about Iwata is I know for a while, especially when the Wii U was kind of doing bad. So I guess his blue ocean philosophy's kind of had a 50-50. Like the DS and Wii did really well, sale wise, but the 3DS kind of had a rocky start. It's doing okay now. I know. I said this earlier, but it's doing okay now. It's actually kind of come back. But the Wii U started out really poor, got a little better, and I don't see it actually doing well, which is why they're already replacing it.
Well, and it's not. Yeah, as I say, it's not going to do any better announcing that there's a new console.
Exactly. So the Wii U's kind of its time has come and gone, and it was not quite what they were hoping for.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of problems with the Wii U. I mean, I love it as a console. But I do realize there are a lot of problems with it. And one last thing I did want to say about Iwata, and like I said, I know there was a lot of people who were wanting him to resign when the Wii U was failing, and he kept saying, "Just bear with it. It's going to get better. We're going to work through this. The blue ocean philosophy. That sometimes it's going to take some doing before it actually sees benefit.
Right.
Like, there's going to be troubled water before we necessarily... Yeah, we're getting away from the competition, but that may not always be a good thing, but it will be in the end.
Right.
And sadly, we're not going to get to see what his vision on all this was.
Well, and I would think that his vision for the NX... I mean, if they're going to announce it next year at E3, you would think that it's pretty much done. At this point, they're just like tweaking it,
I would assume so, yeah.
So I would think his footprint's going to be very much on the NX.
I just hope that... Well, I'm curious. I don't know if I hope or not. I have no idea. But I'm very curious if whoever either takes his place or just Nintendo as a company decides to, for this next console, continue what his plan was. Because, I mean, obviously there was some sort of a business plan that he laid out. Are they going to go with that? Or are they going to try to come up with something new? That, I'm kind of curious of what they might do with that.
Yeah, and I don't think that we're going to see it on the NX. I think that in order to see... Because the NX is already going to be here, it's already, for whatever reason, ready to go. Mm-hmm. I think that's still going to have very much the Iwata feel and whatever his plans were. Because to take it something that's already there and then go, no, we're going to do something different with it, that would be a huge restructuring of something that's already there.
That is very
money,
true.
It's cost, it's different stuff like that. So I don't think you're going to see any big changes during or before the NX release. I think if you're going to see a lot of changes other than, hey, this is the person's in charge, it's going to be right after that.
Okay.
And then it's going to be, okay, well, here's where this person is now taking us, and here's how he's doing it.
Right. No, I can see that. Well, anyway, the one last thing I did want to say about Iwata is he was being asked to resign. There was all this stuff going on. And I remember, I want to say it was either 2013... It was Nintendo posted some really bad financial reports because Wii U wasn't doing well. There weren't that many games for it yet. And instead of firing anybody like a normal company would do, he sliced his salary in half.
Yeah.
So that way he didn't... There's not a lot of business people out there who would do something like that, like heads of companies.
No, I know when people actually do that, because there was some company in Colorado that did it a couple months back. Like, it makes headline news because it's such an odd thing to do. Like, what? You didn't just lay people off? What is wrong with you? You're taking money out of your own pocket?
You could save all kinds of money from the company, and you don't have to lose a dime. And it was more or less like, this was our fault. These workers were doing what they were told. We led them astray. We should be the ones that take the hit. And I thought that was very admirable. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I might not agree with everything you do, but you at least
stand by it.
Yeah. And he came across as a very genuine person, which is, again, rare. I mean, you always, at least in my mind, I always picture these heads of corporations and companies as these greedy people who just want your money. They want to give you the least amount of product you can get for the most amount of money.
Right.
And
I hope that's not what becomes his replacement, because what I'm worried about is, because he's kind of broke that trust barrier with the family that is owning Nintendo and all that kind of stuff, I hope that now that they're just not going to go out and find, a CEO to do what the CEO or the president needs to do. I hope that they stick with the fact that they need to trust him and believe in what he's doing and believe that he's a good person doing what he's supposed to be doing.
Well, that kind of leads us into the next thing I wanted to talk about was, who do you think they're going to pull in? Do you think it's going to be somebody we know, a big name that we know from Nintendo, or do you think it's going to be kind of a unknown that they're promoting from either from within or from another company? Or
well, I mean, when you think of Nintendo, the only other two names that are big, at least for us in North America, are Reggie and Miyamoto.
Yeah. And
I really don't see either one of those two being put into that position.
The only one there is no way they're going to put Reggie in. I do not ever see that happening. If they announced that Miyamoto would get the job, I wouldn't be that surprised, honestly.
I don't know if I would be surprised, because he is a very prominent figure in Nintendo and everything. I just don't know if that's a fit for him.
I don't know if it's a fit either. I don't know if it's a good idea or not. It could be, because I know Iwata had the programming background and all that, and I know obviously Miyamoto has the creativity to do it.
Right.
But I could be completely wrong on this, but I thought I remember reading an article just recently that he actually had very little, if anything at all, to do with the next console, because he wants to be more into the design of the games and not in the hardware.
Well, then I don't see him wanting to be the president or CEO, because if he wants to stick with building the games and being a developer and doing that kind of stuff,
right?
If you're a CEO or a president, that's not what you're going to be doing.
That's not what you're going to be doing.
You're going to be overseeing people doing that,
right? But I could also see him doing that because I believe it was his team that worked on Splatoon.
Okay.
Miyamoto, it was kind of like his proteges worked on Splatoon, and he didn't really have anything to do with it, but he kind of oversaw them doing it. So in that aspect, I could see him. So I'm kind of like on the fence about this. I would not be that surprised. I just don't know if it's the right fit.
Right.
I could, like, part of me is like, yeah, I think he could do it. He's obviously, I mean, he's one of the most creative people. He's made all these characters that we all know and love.
Right.
But at the same time, when was really the last time he created something that we really liked? I mean, I believe Pikmin was his last big game.
I think so.
And I know he did he did those 2 demo things at the last E3. What was it? Project Robot and Project Defense or something like that.
Well, and he's had his hands in a lot of different stuff, but him himself coming up with something hasn't been since those things.
Well, I know he did those 2 demo, and I don't think they went over too well from what I remember reading at E3 last year. I don't think they were even mentioned this year. Although he does have Star Fox, the new Star Fox.
Right.
Out, but I mean, that's not new. It's something that's still something old.
Yeah.
But that's the only name that really comes to mind for me. Although I would be curious. I just don't know if he'd have any. I don't think it would be a good fit at all, but I think the only other name I can think of would be Enuma, but I don't know if he'd be interested in doing that or if he would at all be a good fit.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is I don't know the business acumen of any of these guys.
Exactly.
We only know them in the role that they're in right now.
That is extremely true.
Like Reggie, we know he's a fairly decent business person. He's very personable and all that kind of stuff, but I don't see him fitting into that side of things. Like, he's the CEO of North America, and I think he does a good job there. I just don't see him being the president of the entire company and being able to do that overall.
Right. And I know I was kind of like, I saw a few people talking about this, that Nintendo kind of needs a Steve Jobs type character, and could Miyamoto pull off, or kind of like, yeah, I guess Miyamoto, could he pull off a Steve Jobs thing? And I know he's got the language barrier. Yeah. But maybe obviously that's what Nintendo has always used Reggie for.
Right.
But I still don't see Reggie actually being put in the president of the entire company.
Right.
I think he's a good fit where he's at, and he needs to stay there.
Yeah.
But I don't see him actually taking over.
No, me neither.
Well, whoever takes over for the spot, what kind of leadership, I guess, do you want them to use? Do you want them to continue Iwata's Blue Ocean philosophy and who cares about the competition, let's go our own way? Would you rather see somebody who's like, no, we need to compete, we need to go and take back our stake as one of the big 3?
I think you have to have somebody that's willing to look in all directions. I mean, to close yourself off like Iwata did and say, okay, well, we're not even going to pay attention to what they're doing, we're going to do our own thing, in a way is going to hurt you the way that it's hurt them in the path that they're going.
Right.
And to say, no, I'm just going to go out there and compete with what they've got isn't going to help you at all either. Mm-hmm. To just say, well, I'm just going to put out a high-powered machine and hope that alone sells it. Well, you're not going to develop anything new. You're not going to have, the creativity that Nintendo's had. So I think you've got to have somebody that's doing both. You've got to be on the same water as the other people, to use his analogy.
But doing something different that pulls attention away from those two.
Right. But you have to compete.
Yeah.
If you don't compete, then you're not going to drive sales. You don't drive sales, you don't have a product.
Right. And I do agree. I mean, I know that's the easy answer to say, is like, oh, you need someone who does both.
Yeah, just do everything.
But I mean, that is really the best, the only solution that they have, in my opinion, to go forward, is they need to somehow stay their quirky Nintendo self, but they need to put up a fight and actually compete.
Right.
And that is a very fine line to walk for them.
Well, and the thing is, okay, let's say that they come out with this NX, and the NX doesn't have any newer technology. Maybe they add something like what Kinect has, but it's their own thing or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the machine itself is more powerful than anything that we've seen so far. That should sell them enough consoles to get them to whatever they want to do next. And it's going to keep them competitive enough to be able to research other things and do different things and do stuff like that. I think this next console has to be competitive above being innovative.
Yeah.
Because they haven't been competitive the last 2 times.
Yeah.
So you've got to come back to that. Otherwise, you're getting into a completely different part of doing anything.
And the only thing that scares me is I really hope that Nintendo doesn't think that they were being competitive with the Wii U. Like, oh yeah, see, it has HD graphics now.
Yeah.
Because, like, yeah, well, everyone else did a generation ago.
Right.
I mean, it's cool that you went off on your own and did the whole motion control thing, but you've even kind of abandoned that to a degree. There's to a degree. There's some games that they have that do still somewhat use it, but it's nowhere near what the Wii was. And so now, I mean, what are you going to do next? You need to have something that's powerful that will, because there are a ton of gamers out there who will look at Nintendo products and be like, they're underpowered, they don't look as good. We want something that looks like these Xbox, and we want something that looks like the PlayStation, but if they just do that, then they're just a copy of that that's already existed.
Right. So
they need to have that Nintendo charm that's like, okay, well, we do look nice, but we can also do this, and these don't do that.
Well, and you can't scare away these third-party games.
Exactly.
I mean, you've got to be powerful enough that they want to put their games on your console.
Or that they can put the games on the console.
That's true. Don't make the technology so far out there that they don't even want to try to touch it.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of in the line that they have to walk, is like, we need to stay ourselves, but we need to be relevant, I guess.
Yeah. Now, with the NX, do you think that they might change the name to something? I don't know. You know, it's
some
like,
kind of nod to Iwata?
It's something, even if it's just like, you know, have a Kirby pictured on the back of it where you plug everything in. I don't know. But, like, you know.
That'd be kind of neat. Have just, like, a Kirby with, like, the Iwata hair or something.
Yeah, just some, like, nod to it. Or maybe that's the person, or, like, during the tutorial, it's Kirby with Iwata, like, dressed up as Iwata, teaching you how the system works or whatever.
Or, I mean, I'm assuming that Nintendo's going to continue their Miis because...
Yeah, that's what they've always done.
Well, that's what they've done since the Wii now. Or is it even earlier?
I was going to say, did they have it on the DS?
I don't know.
I know that it eventually made its way to the DS, but I don't think it originally did. I think the Wii was the first one that had the Miis.
And I know
the name of them.
I know the 360 had the avatars, and they're still around. So I mean, it would make sense. So I maybe that the NX comes with a Iwata Mii already in it.
Yeah, could be.
He's kind of like the guide in the system. Like, he guides you around and shows you where everything is the first time you turn it on, or something to that degree.
Yeah, I think that would be neat.
Honor him in some kind of way, just because, I mean, he has done, regardless of his recent past, like with the Wii U and the 3DS, I mean, at least he tried something.
Well, and he's gotten them to, I mean, Nintendo wouldn't be where it's at without him.
Exactly. I mean, he got them to this point.
Right.
And regardless of his most recent venture, which... it was something.
Right.
I really enjoyed the Wii U. Like I said, it has its faults. I'm well aware of the faults, but I still like it as a console.
Yeah, me too.
And I know you like your 3DS.
Yes, I do. So, I mean, he's got to be doing something right.
Yeah.
So or did something right.
Yeah. So, I guess rest in peace, Mr. Iwata.
Most definitely.
And let us know what you all think. Do you think Nintendo should continue on the path that they're on the Blue Ocean, or you think they should be slightly more competitive, a mix of the two? And I guess, who do you think? Who would you like to see take over?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options out there. I mean, even looking outside of different companies and stuff like that, and just let us know who you think should be there.
Thank you all for listening.
See ya.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to IdiotSpeak podcast number 10.
Woo, 10, yeah!
So now that we're done talking about E3 and video games for a while, because I'm kind of burnt out on talking about it.
Yeah, just for a little bit.